Well, we can start right there. So you used to smoke? Is that kind of what
No.
that was? No.
When I was in the military, the guys that smoked got a smoke break.
Yeah.
The rest of us didn't. So I decided to buy a pack of cigarettes and
Yeah.
stand and puff on it so I could take a break with my friends.
But wouldn't that be called smoking?
No, I didn't inhale.
Okay. Well, hey there. Thanks for being here. Today I'm going to bring to you a good friend of mine, John Diziak. He's one of the people that I thought would be a great interview because he started multiple companies and he also does it from a unique place. His work with the Fresh Start Cafe is very heartwarming and it's great stuff, and he's got a great heart for people, and I love that, and I want to bring him to you because I think John is a decent, good guy that we should all get to know. And part of the fun with this show is I get to celebrate people that maybe you don't know and maybe you get a chance to find out about. So sit back, relax, and enjoy your time with John Diziak. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Canonsburg.
Okay.
Up through 5th grade. I went to Boiler Manor.
Okay.
Had Mr. Dziak. And then my dad got a job when I was 11. He got a job in Washington at National Kneeling Box. And so we moved up there, and then I graduated from Trinity. But then I ended up coming back. I married a Canamac girl and been here ever since.
Now you stay here. I think that happens a lot. My wife went to Canamac, so that's where we live. And it's just a happy way to go through life that way. But let me ask you this. Now, the reason that we do this program is because it's a great chance to meet entrepreneurs and get to know them and hear their stories. And so my first question to you is, do you remember what your first business was? Did you have like a lawn mowing company? Did you do stuff like that? Paper route?
Well, growing up, yeah. I think I was 14. I had a paper route.
Okay.
And had 140 some papers before I went to school in the morning.
Every day?
Every day, 7 days a week.
Like a Observer reporter? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
You learn the value of hard work at that point.
Yeah, and that was hoofing.
Yeah.
Although thankfully my mother, when it was really cold, she took pity on me. She would get up and drive me around when it was like below 10.
Okay, so you never did the lawn mowing thing, just the paper route.
Oh, no, I did that too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mowed a few yards.
Yeah.
Mrs. Greco, wonderful lady.
Yeah.
An hour and a half for $6. And she lived right up behind my folks. And,
$6 for how much?
About an hour and a half's worth of work.
Okay. Oh.
But I made it look nice, and she gave me lemonade afterwards.
That's good. Good relationship.
It was good. Yeah, I cut some grass, and then I was a busboy for a while at Ramada Inn.
Yeah.
Worked at Long John's.
Silvers.
That was
Slinging hush puppies.
Slinging hush puppies and fish.
Okay.
You had to make 60 hush puppies in a minute.
In a minute. So you were making the food. You weren't the guy working the register.
No, I was cooking.
Okay.
So you had to scoop it with like a little scooper.
Yeah.
And drop it in oil.
Yeah.
Basically 1 second. So you had a vat of 365 degree oil just waiting. So
This is before OSHA, wasn't it?
Oh, way before OSHA. I had my underside of my arms looked like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. At like 16.
It's awful. I mean, in the uniform, I looked like I was Depeche Mode video.
Yeah.
White bell bottoms and this like pirate low shoulder thing and a bandana.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that for $2.10 an hour.
Okay.
It was great.
You were getting paid more to mow lawns.
I was.
Just some quick math there for you.
But
okay, so you went to college, I'm assuming? Or no?
Well, I went into the military.
That's right, okay.
I went in the Air Force right out of high school.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and so, I almost went into the Marine Corps. I was really close. The gunny sergeant was in the living room, and my dad, who was military, former military as well, he said, before you do that, talk to the Air Force guys just to see what they have to offer. And so I did, and and I had tested high enough on the ASVAB that I got into some technical field, and so I ended up going to the Air Force. So I was in 4 years active, 2 years reserve.
Wow.
So
was that all stateside, or were you?
It was all stateside.
What years were you in?
84 through 88.
Okay. That was a rather peaceful time.
Yeah, I was in Colorado for about a year, and then the remainder was in California, Central California. So not a tough gig.
No.
But nonetheless, it was during the Cold War.
So you had your eye on Russia the whole time.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of security going on there back then. But
did Reagan ever stop by and visit your office?
No, we were hoping, but no.
Yeah.
Remember, I don't know if you remember those posters they had. We had these. It was a Rambo poster with Ronald Reagan's head on it.
Yeah.
Ronbo.
Yeah.
And we had those all over the base.
He was a popular guy with the military.
He was a popular
that's for
guy
sure.
with the military.
After that, you come back home.
Yeah, come back home, and came back just for a visit. My dad was working as a transmission tech across the street from a little print shop.
Okay.
Formerly Wash and Reprographics, and so I went by to visit him. I was home on just to visit, on a break, and I noticed it said hiring.
Yeah.
So I went in and I said, "Hey, I see you're hiring. What are you hiring for?" Well, we need somebody to run prints, and we're looking for a salesman too. And I said, "Well, I'd never sold anything, so." So I said, "Oh yeah, okay, I could do that." Well, I interviewed with the owner, the former owner, Bill Harrison, and he said, "You'd probably be a pretty good salesman." And I said, "Well, you probably have to teach me,
Yeah.
So I started there as a salesman. I got, I think my base pay was around $800 every 2 weeks, plus some commission, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
I paid for my car out of that, though.
Right. Yeah. And you're a single guy at this point, right?
Yeah. And then I went to met my lovely wife to be, and went to Duquesne for my undergrad. I finished my undergrad there.
Are you still working in the print shop? Or okay.
Still working in the print shop, and then decided to go for my MBA, and went to Waynesburg for that. I got accepted to CATS at Pitt, but driving to Oakland was always challenging. So Waynesburg had just opened a satellite place right here on 19.
Okay.
And it was really convenient. So so for 2 years, 3 nights a week, 6 to 10.
Yep.
And
you were married at this point?
I'm married at this point.
Did you have kids?
Yep, I had at least one. They were little.
Yeah.
So thank God that went through. Yeah, I definitely did, because I remember I have a graduation picture, my master's graduation with my oldest one. And about a year after that, I don't know, I felt the urge to do something different. I had gotten into a little more into the business, got a feel for it, and I decided to talk to Mr. Harrison about buying him out.
Yeah.
And so we had that conversation.
Was he getting older? I mean,
he was getting a little older, and
was he dropping hints like I can do that?
No, he really wasn't dropping hints. I just felt like I wanted to take the reins of something. Yeah. You know what I mean? And which is probably one of the reasons I didn't stay in the military.
Too many levels of people above you.
Yeah, you just did stuff because you were told to.
Right.
And
no questions, no explanations, just do it.
And in the military, you're not allowed to question.
Right.
And
That's
when
my
I
point.
started to question, it was time for me to leave. So I went to a bank and borrowed almost $1 million
to buy Washington Reprographics. Wow.
And so I mortgaged a house, emptied what savings we had, and sold my wife's van, and maxed out some credit cards to get there.
This podcast and all the programs here on the Mentrepreneur Network are all brought to you and powered by Strategy. Strategy Virtual Marketing is the local entrepreneur's best friend. If you are not being found like you'd like to be found, if you don't have the leads coming in that you'd prefer to have, reach out, strategy.io. Our objective is to help entrepreneurs get to the next level. We are for entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs. We're here for you. So check us out at strategy.io. So your wife's working, so she's providing some stability as you're going through this process.
She had gotten a job initially as a permanent sub.
Okay.
And then as a school teacher for Cannon McMillan.
Right.
Elementary.
And at that time they're providing benefits and everything.
So, so we had some benefits.
So she carried you. If it wasn't for her,
she's been carrying me for a long time.
Right.
Poor woman. But at the end of the day, she always had the faith, and in me and what she felt I could do and capable of, and all those things, and
it's necessary.
And never, and never questioned that judgment. It was,
Yeah.
it was steadfast. And like I said, even when we were getting ready to close on the thing,
Yeah.
I would call her and say, "Hey, bank says I need another $30,000 in the account." So we would max out a credit card,
Yeah.
take the cash, and then when it came due, we'd get another credit card.
Yeah.
So thank God we had good credit, and we would just roll it. And but when I needed it, she was there. And all through grad school, like
Yeah.
we paid for that. And how in the world
Yeah.
she juggled all that? John Cipher, who's now retired, because he was working with me at the time, my accountant, and we did pro forma after pro forma. But as well, I had to create a resume of sorts.
Yeah.
So having a history in the military, and then the education really,
Right.
I think, helped out a lot. And I had numerous meetings with the bank, so I'm sure they were able to gauge if
That you were a good thing.
it was a decent bet.
Yeah.
And thank God it worked
Yeah.
out. But it's all the other pieces and parts to it. It's not just me. It's
Right. People.
It's a lot of people, including my family, that and even Mr. Harrison, realizing there's some potential there,
Right.
and so he was able to sell his company and retire, and
Which is not an easy thing to do, especially if you
No.
built it from nothing.
and I'll never forget, we picked him up when we went to the closing,
Oh, that's cool.
and so it was cool. So
Yeah.
it's my wife and I and Bill Harrison, we rode together,
Yeah.
and we're there, and the bank's attorneys were there, and they verified all the accounts and things of that sort, and they say, "Okay, Mr. Dziak, we need a check for $100 and some thousand.
Right.
I literally wrote them a check, and we had Disney checks at the time at home. It was literally Mickey Mouse on the check, and I wrote this check, and I handed it to the bank's attorney, and he just busted out laughing.
Yeah.
And then they issued a check to Bill Harrison,
Yeah.
and he said, "Thanks for the check, John. Good luck."
Yeah. That's it.
And then he rode home with us.
Yeah.
It was a weird ride.
I've talked to some people who've sold companies, and they always say it feels like it's going to be a great day, but then once the day really gets going, you're like, well, okay, now what am I going to do with my day? Like, I no longer care about that, and that's what's hard about that, because it used to be such a driving force in their life, and then for it to just disappear.
But it's well, and
Did he stop in after a couple times? See, I think he's never been back. Good for him.
he seldom.
Yeah.
And even when invited, and I think, there were some reasons that he just didn't feel comfortable or whatever, and he was a good guy, I mean, he taught me how to sell.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about what to do, then I taught myself what not to do. The realization of it's you now.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're alone, and it's you. I couldn't rely on my parents.
Right.
Wife was there to provide whatever support she could.
But at that number, at that investment, that commitment, it has to be overwhelming, because it is on you.
Oh,
And
it
if
is.
it doesn't work, you could, I guess, try to sell it, but by that point, you
No.
could
Well,
run-
no, it was
you were the only person who probably interested in at that moment.
You're so much in debt.
Yeah.
And you're so leveraged that
Right.
nobody would touch it with a
Right.
10-foot pole.
Exactly.
And
Right.
and the other thing was, the heat of, if this doesn't work out, they're taking everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably moving in with your mother-in-law if she doesn't throw you out.
And Long
as
John
well.
Silver's again.
You're
back to slinging hush puppies.
I'll never forget that year, Christmas time.
Yeah.
I still have the picture, because we closed on December 23rd,
Okay.
and it was Christmas morning.
Yeah.
And I had a copy of the corporate shares that I owned.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
And they took a picture in front of the
Yeah.
tree that year.
That's nice.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, and then Monday rolls around.
Yeah. Now you got to go to work.
And my payroll person said, "Hey, I don't know if we have enough money in the account for payroll." I'm like,
You're like,
really?
I just put $1 million into this. What's the problem? Right.
Well, we and I think the reason the bank wanted me to have a certain amount of cash in there is so that I have liquidity. But I was like, okay. And at the time, we had this sort of weird sweep account. I mean, it was easier to navigate the stars than to figure out where the money was, because
Right.
it would come in and come out and come in and come out.
Yeah.
And even the payroll person didn't know.
Right.
So we quickly changed that relationship
Yeah.
to a different bank. But decided to write a check for around $30,000 to cover that first payroll.
Yeah.
We then learned that there was money there.
Yeah.
But it took a few months for it to wash out.
Right.
But yeah, that
doesn't
was,
help you sleep through the
Oh,
January and the February. And,
No,
Yeah.
and people, I would send like emails or notes out at 2:33 in the morning.
Yeah.
Because I would wake up in the morning and I'm crunching numbers. You
Yeah.
know, like, I can move this here, and I can. And I would send stuff out, and I'd come to the office, and they're like, "Dear Lord, man."
That first year, I would think anyone that purchases a company, it's a learning curve that you didn't even expect. And so you're going through that, and all the employees who stuck around or involved, I mean, you're all kind of learning each other that way, but you've known them for a while.
It was a different, definitely a different vibe.
Dynamic changed.
And most everybody was good with it. I
Yeah.
tried to be fair, and I have a different style, than Mr. Harrison did.
Yeah.
And that style has continued to evolve even to this day, but
Yeah.
for the most part, it was different.
Yeah.
And I tried to make sure there were no disruptions in
Right.
anything,
Right.
and then we quickly set on a path of conquest and world domination and
Dominate the market and take it over.
Well, at that time, when you're so leveraged,
Yeah.
you need debt service coverage,
Yeah.
profit,
Yeah.
when you borrow money.
Right.
Well, the only way to do that is to sell more to have more profit.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, okay, I made X amount of money, well, because you don't pay debt service until after all the bills are
Right.
paid. That's a balance sheet item.
Right.
So, then Uncle Sam wants his piece of that. While
Yeah,
he's
it's
at
weird.
it.
Yeah, it's weird.
So yeah, it's just bizarre.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, so for many years, chasing that coverage number and making sure that we, because you got to watch. Times get tough and banks get tight.
Yeah.
They could call your loan too.
Yeah.
At which point you're toast.
Right.
So, but thank God we kept doing it, kept growing it, and thankfully I had a lot of good folks around me. We just kept working and working, and
Yeah. So how many people worked for you there? And then I want to get into where it led to.
it ballooned out. It was probably 20-some, 30 back then. At one point, I think I had 7 retail locations.
Okay. Was that something you changed? So there was one operation in Washington.
There was one and one in Robinson.
So there's 2.
We had something in town too, but I moved and relocated all of them.
Okay.
And then added a bunch
Yeah. When did you change the name?
15 years ago.
Okay.
Or more. And one of the biggest challenges with Washington Reprographics, I don't think anybody even knows what that word means,
Right.
unless you're an architect or an engineer.
Right.
Well, that was our business.
Right.
Blueprinting.
Right.
But as you can imagine, that's a very narrow sliver of a market.
Sure.
And your revenue would swing 40% month to month. Very difficult to manage cash flow with that.
I would think. Yeah.
So I decided to get into wide format color and some other things,
Right.
and which grew into what it is today. And plus the technology had changed. So back then you would print things and distribute them. That's quickly morphed into what we have today, which is distributed
Right.
and only print what you need.
Right.
So I didn't have a need for 7 locations.
Right.
So we consolidated, although everybody that was there, we kept
Yeah.
95% of them. I bought a couple other companies in the process.
Other printing companies. Yeah.
And with different skill sets.
Right.
And a lot of times it was people that were good at what they did, but they didn't like the business part.
Right.
And
Because you have designers on staff, you have people that just work the machine and they maintenance that.
and then salespeople, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the business side was sort of, I enjoyed that.
Right.
And it was sort of a perfect scenario for me. I had just finished an MBA, so that stuff was fresh in my mind. And
Right.
being able to use, that education and then quickly apply it
Yeah.
to real world.
Right. I went to college and I still have used not one bit of it. I'm waiting.
What's funny? It just, we'll go borrow some money. We'll figure it out.
That's exactly right. It does. It does help when you have that on your resume. Yeah, that's what you're paying
Yes,
for. That's why I asked. I said the MBA when you purchased it, was it a little helpful that they saw? That
it was immensely helpful.
Yeah.
Just to have a global understanding of
Sure.
how money moves and cash
Yeah.
works and things like that.
Mhm.
And
How many employees do you have now?
about 40.
Do they like you?
They act like they do when I'm around.
That's all. That's
Yeah.
good enough to me. I don't know.
You know, it's funny you say that. If you go to my website, one of the things that I'm most proud of are all the employees and
Yeah.
the people. And it's not about the machines.
Mhm.
It's not about the technology. It's not about the materials.
Right.
It's about the people.
Right.
And so we focus a lot on them, because really, if I take care of them, they take care of everything.
Right.
And so, we all have to work for a living, so
Sure.
why be miserable?
Right.
So I try to practice a very, some would say, too lenient, but we're all adults, and
Right.
and if you have to leave to go to the doctor or take your kids somewhere, whatever,
Mhm.
do it. I don't. If you come in 5 minutes late, I'm not there.
Right.
If you need to leave a little early, that's fine.
Right.
As long as things get done.
As long as you're treated fairly. Right.
But we have a good time. We laugh. We joke a lot.
Every person at your company, because I've had to deal with a lot of things with you guys, every person is genuinely nice and easy to get along with, and I could see them all, and that does reflect on you, obviously. But because I couldn't imagine working for somebody that I couldn't stand or couldn't deal with, and so clearly you must be likable. I like you, so I guess it makes sense why other people like you.
Well, you're one.
Oh, at least one, right? A lot of people in the local area, they take their kids to play hockey. Well, it used to be called the Isoplex. Now it's called PrintScape Arena. So what led to that?
So we had converted to PrintScape,
Right.
and the primary reason was for that was our largest customer is actually in Wisconsin,
Oh, okay.
and I had people tell me I would have never found you with the name you have,
Yeah.
Washington Reprographics.
Right. That makes sense.
I actually hired an outside firm to help me with that, because I wanted to figure out how do people see me, not how do I see myself.
Right. And that's hard to do.
As a business.
Yeah.
So, and I use that strategy to this day when I
Yeah.
need something marketing help related or even HR related.
Yeah.
Got a call we had done some things for the Wild Things in Washington.
Yeah.
I think we sponsored a little pavilion or something there.
Right.
And so someone from the former Isoplex called and said, hey, we have some sponsorship opportunities. Would you be interested? And I'm like, I'm not really interested. So anyway, she shows me the stuff, and I said, and in there it said something about, she said, well, what we're really looking for is a partner, a naming rights partner long term.
Yeah.
I said, oh, well, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And then I took a look at the building and the facility, and this is like a canvas.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Everything in there
Yeah.
is what we do.
Right.
And so, and when I ran the numbers, our foot traffic there now is over 900,000 a year.
It's crazy.
But if you walk in there, you point at this wall, that wall, the ice, everything. It's all of what PrintScape is and does. So,
Right.
in addition to the naming opportunities, it was a wonderful showpiece to take customers to.
Yeah.
And it was, and I had a lot of people look at me sideways when I did that.
Yeah.
But fast forward, we've had it 6 years.
Yeah.
And people know the logo now.
Yeah.
They know the name.
Yes.
So the brand equity has.
Let's talk about
work.
what PrintScape has provided for local schools. The artwork you're providing is showing the history of the school.
Especially the Trinity one was the first one I saw and went, I could stand and look at this wall for hours. It's amazing. Is that a product you came up with? Is that something you've seen elsewhere?
Well, a lot of what we do is, I have very talented designers and creative folks, but at the end of the day, we really help the customer realize a vision.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's something they don't even realize they want.
Right.
But I say, well, what's your goal here? What do you want to say here? And they started talking about the history and the legacy of the school, and then they put in that Sports Hall of Fame down there. And so together with the athletic director, we gathered up stacks and stacks of yearbooks and pictures.
Crazy.
And then our designers started to piece it all together and created that. And we've done it at Carlington.
Okay.
We did something at Carlington.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what it turned into. But it's
Every school should have it.
really does talk about the legacy. We've done, some universities in the same context. Even organizations, professional teams have done it now. And but it tells the story of the organization.
Right.
And and I think it legitimizes what they're doing, and they see the people that have gone through the institution, and you're like, wow, I remember that guy. You know, I mean,
Are there any pictures of you from Trinity on those walls?
I don't think so.
You didn't even sneak one in?
No.
You are such a guy. You have so much integrity.
I wouldn't go that far. It's because I have no accolades from high school. That's why. Yeah, there are no pictures of me running for touchdowns or hitting home runs. Or
did you play any sports in high school?
I played football and track.
Okay.
Again, I don't remember winning at much of anything.
I could see you. I'm trying to think of what you would have done in track.
I threw the discus and the javelin.
You look like a discus kind of guy.
And I'll never forget Chris Tanner. I had started running one day at a track meet. He says, "Hey, you're going to run the mile today." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And I felt like a runner that day.
Right.
So I ran. It was 5 minutes and something.
Yeah.
So I was nowhere near our best
Did
guy.
you say 5-minute mile? That's not bad, John.
I was 16 or 17.
I think you could have put yourself into the mural, is all I'm saying.
Oh.
Are you a local small business entrepreneur looking to attract more customers? Strategy Virtual Marketing can help you get noticed online and drive more people to your business, whether it's physical or online. Get a free online presence audit and your first month of service free. Our team makes it easy and affordable to increase your sales by boosting your online presence. Let us help you grow your business. Visit us at strategy.io. That's STRADIGI.io to get started today. Strategy Virtual Marketing. For entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs.
We can talk about guitar now because the Jay Krager band.
Well, yeah, there's that.
Yeah, that's now. When did you join that band?
Oh, I started playing just to do something with my brother.
Yeah, that's cool.
And because he was a musician from when he was young, and but it kind of clicked for me, and I enjoyed it, and I took a couple lessons, and my teacher asked me if I wanted to play out with him. We're at a private show.
Yeah.
I said, it's only about 50 people. I'm like, I'd never played in front of anybody.
Right.
So I go and play, and there's people there, and he said, okay, first song, Brown Eyed Girl. So I'm playing bass.
Yeah.
And dun, 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 dun. And I'm like, I could feel my knees shaking in my pants.
Yeah.
I was scared to death. But by the time the second verse came in, I was like, oh, this is awesome.
You're like, I found where I belong.
And I kept at it. And to me, it just relaxed me. It's not something I'd never done all my life. And so
at 54, you picked up a bass for the first time. That should give people hope.
Well, yeah.
If they're interested in doing something new with their
And
life.
then, I tried to play with some different guys. I went to this one basement over in Duquesne, and there was weed smoke 3 feet from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And they're all smoking. They're like, hey, you want to hit this? I'm like, I'm good.
Maybe you're not familiar with the rock and roll lifestyle, John.
Yeah, well, maybe it was the V-neck sweater I wore that didn't quite fit in.
Sorry, guys, I just left my company that I run with my 40 employees. What are you guys all up to? You can see what we're up to, John.
Well, that didn't quite pan out. But and then I saw an ad in the Craigslist.
Yeah.
It says they're looking for a bass player for a country band. I'm like, okay. So I show up at this bar in Burgettstown to meet these guys. And,
wow.
And I don't know, we kind of clicked.
Yeah.
And that's evolved over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And got to play in Nashville, a couple shows, play about 30 shows a year. 1 year more than that, and it was a bit much.
Yeah.
But even to this day, I play every day and look forward to playing with my buddies and playing shows, and we do a lot of benefits and festivals. Most of us are veterans in the band.
See, I don't think people realize if they've done the music thing that they act like you're not thrilled if you're not making a ton of money. It's nothing to do with money.
No.
It's about the crowd. I want as many people in front of me as I can find.
Well, there's that. I mean,
It's always the music.
We've played to 5 people.
Right.
Okay. To me, there's nothing better than being on a stage.
Yeah.
And you guys are clicking.
Yeah.
And it's tight.
You're in a groove.
And you're just in it. And I don't care if there's 5 people or 500 or 5,000. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And because that all kind of goes away when you're in that.
Right.
You know. But that's truly the vibe.
Yeah.
The challenging part about that is sometimes you have to play these shows at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
And you're a little older than 54 now, right? So.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
But once I start playing,
yeah,
I'm golden.
Yeah. Does your wife go to every show?
No.
No. Does she wear a T-shirt when she's there?
She wears a T-shirt that says, I got dibs on the bass player.
Well,
you know what? The woman surely has the patience of Job.
Yeah.
The band will come over and we go and we play and she just goes upstairs and she's been very supportive of everything, and I try to limit my instruments from being all around the house.
Yeah.
But no, she's very supportive because I've to play some of these shows I've missed family events and things like that.
Yeah.
But they're counting on you for something, and and
you're the bass player,
and you kind of hold it together sometimes.
Right.
So
the bass players, that's part of the job. You have to hold it together.
Yeah, everybody calm down. The bass player's here.
Right. We talked earlier about what it was like to borrow $1 million, what it was like to get through that that process going through a bank, and now you do that yourself. You're part of the team that awards people the money they need to start their businesses.
You know what, Kevin? It was really kind of came out of the blue.
Yeah.
I was invited to be on the board of directors.
Yeah.
And of a bank, and I mean, I got the background, I got the education experience. So when I started putting it all together, but I remember having to interview. Well, I hadn't interviewed for forever, so I actually polished up a resume, went in, put my best suit on, that stuff. I'm the entrepreneur of the board,
right?
That borrowed money, that started with less than nothing type of thing, and so I think having that dynamic, because we have a fabulous accountant, an attorney, an insurance person, we have a retired superintendent, and somebody from the construction background.
Yeah, man, it seems like a crucial element. I mean, the people that come to you are typically entrepreneurs, I'm assuming.
A lot of them, yeah. I mean, there are people borrowing to grow. But so I do have a different angle. So when we're looking at a loan package, I typically ask different questions.
Yeah.
And just because one run ratio works out and their credit score is good,
right?
Maybe I want to see something else because I understand the time of money, and money is time, and what that means is, well, if I have time, money buys me time,
right?
And and you can. And most of the part at the board level, you typically don't even see the loans by the time they get through credit. But but I thoroughly enjoy it, But they're great folks. It's a great bank, and CFS Bank is our bank.
Yeah.
We have 10 branches, fabulous team, fabulous executive team, and real proud of that.
That's really cool. I really like when you told me about that before. I was excited about that because to have that insight, you almost look across the table and go, who of these people can I look at that's been in my spot before? Because if you've never been down that road, you don't know what that's like. And I talked to some other entrepreneurs. You can look at somebody, like we'll be talking to somebody about their business, and we'll look at each other and go, that guy's not going to make it. He doesn't have what it takes. You don't have that. You can see in the eyes of a person if they have that, what's necessary. But you can't do that unless you've lived it. And that's why it's great that they have you on there.
Well, I don't know if they'll say it's great to have me some days, but you know how that goes. But you know what, for me, Kevin, it was when they asked me, and then I actually had to interview against a couple other people, and they're like, wow, it was his looks and his personality that won by far. But that was a lot of it because having somebody that had been there was leveraged and understands that and really what it's about. That lived it. And I'm still learning. The banking world is a whole different animal.
I would think.
And especially today, with all of the the tumultuous things going on in the finance sector with the Fed and the interest rates.
Interest rates all over the place, yeah.
Yeah, it's very challenging. But, it does give me a different perspective. And Kevin, it was the first time that I felt that I was hired because I was smart enough to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't.
No, I get that.
We spend our lives trying to make our fathers proud of us, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it was one of those. I felt good about it
I'm
in
good
that
enough.
regard.
Right. Yeah.
I felt, okay, I'm good enough. Now I got to live up to that. But so it was a good feeling for me.
Yeah.
Certainly a confidence building.
Yeah.
Feeling.
Oh, for sure.
Me.
Yeah.
And I think God puts these things on our path for a reason. That opportunity, Fresh Start Cafe, where we're sitting, the opportunities and the people that you've heard of, the God wink and whatever. I feel those things were put in our path for a reason, and we do our best to listen.
Yeah.
And
we do our best. Yeah.
we do, sometimes we miss it.
Right.
And but thankfully it worked out.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about the Fresh Start Cafe? Because that's why we're sitting here right now. What is the story? So where did it come from?
Well, the Fresh Start Cafe the original idea was Father George Livanos, a Greek Orthodox priest, and my priest. He baptized me.
Okay.
30 some years ago, and we became good friends. We were neighbors for a while. And he had this cockamamie idea about a community coffee shop,
Yeah.
And he talked to me about it. I said, well, and at the time I knew nothing about coffee.
Right.
I'm like, sure, I'll donate. I'll make some signs and stuff, you know.
Right.
And so he got a group together, and it started to form, but it never happened for one reason or another.
Right.
It wasn't anybody's fault.
Well, it's not easy either.
No, it's certainly not easy.
Someone's got to run it,
and the funding and everything else. So it kind of sat dormant for a while, for over a year, and then sadly, Father got sick. He got cancer and he passed away. He was only 58,
Wow.
And so Matula, my wife, and I were visiting with him before he passed, and he had a way of planting seeds, and we left there. And I said, I'd really like to build that. And I don't know, I just felt that calling of sorts, and so, I let that stew around in my head for a while, and so I started talking to people that knew something about it. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So I formed a board, and got a brand new 501c3, the whole shoot match from ground up. I didn't have a building, there was no money really. On the blue, a young man called me that I had coached basketball when he was a kid, and he says, hey, there's a building on Pike Street, what do you think about a coffee shop? He didn't even know I was thinking about it.
That's crazy.
It was a Sunday night, complete random.
Yeah.
So we met for breakfast that day, and he still is a parishioner at the church. And
Okay.
so we met for breakfast, and we started talking about it. And I said, blah blah blah. I started visualizing. And he said, well, you're not going to believe this. And I said, what? He said, well, my wife just bought a desk off of Facebook Marketplace, brought it home, and one of the drawers would stick. So pulled the drawer out, and a business card fell on the floor. It was Father George's.
Wow.
I'm like, got to do it now.
Yeah. You have no option.
Got to do it. So, and thank God, probably one of the best years I've ever had in business.
Yeah.
And I said, come hell or high water, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so, because God knew I'd need the money for something.
Right.
And so, started down that road. And then I would get a random call. So Paul Scarmazzi called me. Hey, do you want some help managing the contractors?
Yeah.
I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, I'm doing it.
Right.
And
he does. He's a builder, man.
He's
he
perfect.
knows what he's doing.
And
yeah.
And they were very supportive. And his wife, Lisa, picked out the furniture that Father George had inspired her to pick out.
Yeah.
It took a year to fix this building. We had to gut it to the dirt.
Yeah.
But we have been open a year in March. it is truly a community place. We help everybody, and not just in coffee and treats, but in conversation,
Sure.
in mentoring, and you name it. And I do nothing but talk to people all day. And sometimes folks will come in and you just want someone to talk to.
Right.
Sometimes it's a young business person that thinking about something, or he needs help with something, or has a question.
Wants to do a podcast, and he's like,
or some crazy guy wants to come in here with gear and do a podcast, or whatever that is.
So you believe Father George would appreciate this,
All day.
This is the vision. That's amazing.
Yeah, and on the wall back here, there's a picture right around that 1 year. His whole family came.
Yeah.
All 7 kids.
Wow.
477 grandchildren. I mean,
Wow.
this place was
Yeah.
packed. It was all
Yeah.
Leavanakia. But no, a lot of friends and supporters.
Yeah.
But it's not just Greek Orthodox.
Right.
You know, I have Anglicans,
Yeah.
and Presbyterians, and
Mhm.
Russian Orthodox, and so
It's a non-denominational.
it's all denominations. You know.
I feel comfortable in here. I'm not Greek Orthodox, so
Yeah, that's okay. You look Greek.
do I? No, that's amazing. No, it's really cool, and so we're basically coming to the end here, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Johnny Waffle, which is why people should, if nothing else, stop by this
Well,
community,
that's
this place here.
You know, So we
Of
were-
all the things in your life you're proud of, I'm thinking the Johnny Waffle.
Well, that's I don't know if that's on the list, but
it has to be.
it's I don't know. I still think that's something I was meant to learn
Yeah.
for a reason. You know, this coffee shop. I knew nothing about coffee. So I reluctantly opened a little coffee place in the arena, in the PrintScape arena,
Yeah.
because there was nothing for the customers.
Mhm.
So a good friend, Jim Bendel from Crazy Horse Coffee, I met him at a veterans event, and he's a coffee expert.
Yeah.
So, and I liked his coffee, and so I decided to buy his coffee. Well, he taught me everything there was to know about coffee and how to make it and how to filter the water and da-da-da-da. But it was like I was meant to learn that
Right.
for this.
For this. So you opened up the Ringside Cafe prior
To
to this, but not in hopes of learning it. It just happened to be that which led to this.
This wasn't even on my radar then.
Right. I see.
And,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and then back to the Johnny Waffle. So
Yeah. Thanks.
So
Thanks for keeping me on track.
that's all right. So no, we were visiting our godchildren in Belgium, and walking through these little towns, and you know, sightseeing. And these guys are selling these little sweet waffles on the street. It was like street food.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know how many I ate that week.
Yeah.
It had to be 50. I mean, it was ridiculous. I would come home back to the house, and I always had a bag of them,
Yeah.
and I would just munch them. There was just something about them. They were addictive.
Yeah.
Addictive. So I said, I told I said, man, I got to figure that out. So
Yeah.
I come home, I start fussing around, figured the dough out,
Yeah.
and I started making them at home.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, everybody liked them, so I started taking them to work.
Yeah.
Well, and then I took them to my accountant's office, and every time I went there for a meeting, I would take waffles.
Right.
There's so many times they started calling me Johnny Waffle. I would walk in there like, "Hey, Johnny Waffle's here." I'm like, so I said, like, you know, that's kind of catchy.
It's similar to like Johnny Appleseed. You went around distributing your waffles to the point that you became known as Johnny Waffle. John, who, after the last 52 minutes or so of learning about your life, this is what your life is boiled down to. Waffles.
Waffles.
Johnny Waffle.
Well, you know, but here's the thing. I made them, and I never made them to make money. I just made them to make people happy, and
Yeah.
because people liked them.
Yeah.
And speak of the
You
devil,
can hear people are they're ordering
they're asking
waffles.
for 'em.
They love them.
So Father George
Yeah.
loved them.
Yeah.
It's one of the last things he would eat, and he would call me,
Yeah.
Yanimu.
Yeah.
I don't want to impose, but could you make me some waffles?
Yeah.
And so I would make them and take them, leave them on the porch. And he was really sick. And
Yeah.
and fast forward, his wife, Presbytera, we were talking about that, and she says, he called you. I'm like, oh yeah. He said, she said, I thought you were just bringing him over.
Oh.
I'm like, no, he would call and leave me a message. I can't believe he called you. We opened this.
Yeah.
I said, I could probably really sell those things.
Yeah.
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
People like them.
Yeah.
And, I trademarked the Johnny Waffle name.
Good.
That's
good. You don't want anyone stealing that.
I thought it was catchy. Oh no,
It is.
that's legit.
How many of you sold it?
Just about 14,000
14,000
in a
Johnny
year.
Waffle.
So we average almost 1,000 a month or more.
Yeah.
Well, we get people where, hey, can I get 30? Can I get 50?
Yeah.
I've had people ask for wedding.
I was gonna say for weddings and like your cookie table, and that makes sense.
They're like, hey, can you bring your irons here and like make them here for us? I'm like,
No, I like this.
There's-
I like this for you. I like that you put on a hat. You go do this at like.
well,
event.
I decided to go all in. So
You definitely. Well, that's a bass player thing to do, man.
it is a bass player thing. So I was unsupervised when I got that.
Oh yeah.
My wife was away, and she got home, and I didn't say a word.
You just let life go on.
And so we're sitting on the couch, and she said, what is that on your arm? And I told her, and I said, that's commitment. And
Oh my gosh! I didn't know you had it on your arm.
yeah.
That's amazing.
But
It makes my day.
people get a charge out of it,
Yeah, I would think.
But
Especially when you're working here, short sleeve, on a summer day.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess when you're playing bass, that's it's very clear. Too.
Oh yeah. Well, I've had customers that come in here.
Yeah.
And they've come see the band.
Okay.
And they'll see me playing, and they're like, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
is that John?"
So, basically, I mean, your kids have gone to college. Your life is funded by PrintScape, but you're tattooed with the Johnny Waffle. Is there a PrintScape tattoo on you somewhere?
No.
Wow. So now, at least I know where your loyalties lie.
PrintScape isn't me. PrintScape is
Yeah.
it's all the people that are there.
Right.
So it's
is beautiful.
We
though.
all
This
make
is-
up the fabric of
Yeah.
PrintScape.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
You don't even have the four little.
No.
nothing,
Do you know
okay.
what that is, by the way?
CMYK, I'm guessing.
No.
Okay.
So some people say, "Oh, are you Irish?" Because it looks like a four-leaf clover.
An Irish person wouldn't say that to you.
No, but actually, it's a resemblance of the command key on a Mac keyboard.
Yes.
So
I could see
Command P is Command Print,
Print, yeah.
and most of our customers, or a lot of our customers, are Mac people. So that's
But not all.
that's where it came from. But it's a cool logo and whatever. But Johnny Waffle, and so my wife has an apron over there that says "Wife of Johnny Waffle."
I get dibs on Johnny Waffle.
She's very patient. I will give her that.
You haven't learned that yet through this podcast. Now you know.
Well, tomorrow morning
Yeah.
there's a PTO event. I'm taking 30 some waffles out to them.
That's great.
I do them for Teacher Appreciation
That's
Day.
nice. Yeah. Because you're a charitable guy.
Well,
I do believe. I mean, I've certainly seen that. And we were talking kind of like a pre-interview. We were talking, and you said something that I've heard a couple times, and it rings true. You said, in the end, it's just about people, and that's beautiful. I mean, it's true, and that's what I find. There's obviously stigmas about people who own businesses and whatnot, but in the end, everyone I've talked to said it is about the people, and either the clients, the people I work with, family, but it all comes back to it's about people, and that's what this all is. So, and that's what Fresh Start's about, obviously. And,
yeah. I mean, and thank God for this. And again, it was another one of those things that God put in my path for a reason.
Yeah.
And
other people would have passed on it. They would have said, that's a great idea. I can't do that. And that's why people like you exist. That you're putting you have the resources to do it, but you also have the knowledge of what needs to happen, and you have that obviously you have drive, and that's a huge part. Because if you weren't into it, it wouldn't happen. If you weren't committed.
well, then there's another word for drive. It's obsession.
Obsession, yeah. But there's nothing wrong with obsession. I mean, there's certain things are.
If you can
looked
harness
at.
that.
Yes, if you can properly do with it the good things, then yeah.
Right.
But-
But no, and I'm very thankful. Obviously, Sonia, the manager, and all the volunteers
Yeah.
here, and all the people that came together to bring this in.
Right.
Just as with anything, we're all products of our experiences and the people we've come across.
You did your job. Your job was to get this thing up and running. But every time I talk to you, you say, well, I'll be at the shop, or this is where I am. You're always here because you love it, and you love being, and clearly you can tell when talking to you that Father George is a big part of what drives this every day, and that's great to see.
Well, I never realized it, but, his wife was talking about, I guess she was trying to get him to get a hobby at some point, and he couldn't come up with one. And then he finally came up with one, and he said, I know what my hobby is. People. But even when I'm having a bad day, I'm just upset with the world, whatever, challenges, I'll come in here, and it just sort of grounds me, and it's calm. And, I mean, there's always something to do, naturally.
Yeah.
There's always busy stuff, but I go back and whip up a batch of dough, and all is right with the world.
We have been sitting here with John Diziak. He's, again, a great friend, really interesting guy, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And thank you, John, for being here.
Thank you, awesome. Kevin.
This was cool. Glad we did this.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Go get yourself a Johnny Waffle.
By all means. 46 West Pike Street.
Here in Canonsburg.